Just a second. Ladies and gentlemen, your host of the Krystle and Tommy podcast, put together for your lovely hands, my friend Krystle. How are you doing today, Krystle?
Hey, good. Second episode of Tommy and Krystle podcast. This one, oh yeah, we're delving into it. Get ready, buckle your seatbelt. So the title of this one is Current Social Climate. It's kind of a hot topic, I would say. Definitely, if anybody is a fan of stand-up comedy, it's definitely being talked about a lot. I love those guys. I love Dave Chappelle and Louis C.K. and Bill Burr and Ricky Gervais. And I love those guys. And not that we're here to make fun of anybody. That's not what we're here to do. The purpose is never to offend. So we're just talking about how things are. The zeitgeist of the times, if you will, maybe a part of it. And I think, Tommy, why don't you start off by telling me, this really not very not too couth joke about Kobe Bryant that you saw on TikTok the other day.
Well, what happened is that basically people were like taking toy helicopters and they were chucking them. They were chucking them and saying, "Oh, Kobe," and the fact,
Yeah,
it's just cruel.
like 2 days after the fact.
2 days.
2 days after, and his 13-year-old daughter and 7 other people died. I believe it was 9 people that died in that crash. And I don't know, it's really strange because it's like there's this conflicting sort of message that we're getting nowadays where people make a joke like that, which I don't find that funny at all. And then this other side where people are offended over things to me that are rather petty. And so, it's like you have over here, you have these jokes that are almost objectively hurtful. And then this other side that is hurt by things that are, in my opinion, objectively not hurtful. So it's really confusing. It's really confusing what's going on. And maybe it's been like that for quite some time. I think it really has been like this for a long time.
And with any celebrity's death, there's always these negative connotations. There's always these negative jokes, and it's really, truly ridiculous on how a human person's life is just scrutinized to the point of in degradation, and a person's life after the point shouldn't be scrutinized like that. Kobe Bryant was a legend in his own way, and there wasn't just Kobe Bryant on that helicopter. There was multiple lives on that helicopter that lost their lives. So they're not just making fun of him and his daughter. They're making fun of the people that were on that helicopter. And a comedy is one of those things that is kind of chopped. Oh, by the way,
I think I want to say, that when you said that about comedy, so there is a lot of tragedy and a lot of cynicism in comedy, but it's all about context. To mock death itself is, if you broaden it, it can be funny. If we joke about how we are going to die and this is how we die, or we get old and die, whatever, death, then that can be funny. But when you make it the context is very specific to this one individual, excuse me, or this one group of people, then it's like it's becoming personal. It's very personal to them. And then that's when I would say, not as you know that I'm some kind of a comedian or anything, but I do very much appreciate comedy, and I think I have an idea of what makes something funny and not something not funny, is then that's when it loses its comedic edge. It just becomes cruel. And a punchline isn't cruelty. If
No, it's
that's your
not.
punchline, you're not trying to be funny anymore.
And I think that at a certain point when you are uh, chastising somebody and you are making fun of somebody, I think it's cruel and unusual, even when the person didn't deserve it. And even in certain circumstances, we're found with a double barrel edge sword where we are constantly cutting the level of insanity of diversity in today's world. And even the slightest thing will make people, as I have here in the thumbnail, pick up torches and start burning houses and start attacking people, getting in people's faces. And
So and that is another thing that I think it's been like that for a long time, where there have always been people that have, whether you want to say that it's a passionate viewpoint or it's highly opinionated, one of those lends credit to a cause, and the other is attention seeking. And I think that's, to me, that is a huge theme, a huge foundational difference in not just today, because when you talk about today's climate, we're really talking about the last 30 or 40 years and then on into the future, because that's like, a couple of generations is really present time. It's not like, the last couple of days. This is systemic. It's been building for a long time. It's cause and effect. Something caused what is happening now. We are causing what's going to happen in the future, whether we don't even know how we're doing it. But that's how our lives, that's how humanity operates, And it's really sad to see that it's 2020 and we're having the same arguments, basically the same conflict that we were having 30 and 40 years ago. And what I think is also really sad is, as many people who are on board, as many minds as I have personally seen changed as far as how they look at LGBTQ communities, or how they feel about race, or how they feel about, men and women equality or whatever.
And even the T's with the people that are the T in the T section, that they believe they have to force their way of life onto other people.
Some of them do. Some, yes. And unfortunately, they are gaining a lot of media attention. It's really such a hard thing to talk about, because for them to ask to be accepted, to expect to not have to justify their lives, is absolutely completely understandable. However, no person on this planet Earth can expect to go through life unscathed. You are going to have people that don't like you for any amount of reasons that you can imagine. I've had people not like me, and I never knew why, and I still don't. And I can't. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Am I going to rally in the street? Am I going to scream at the top of my lungs until somebody says, "Hey, let's defend her"? There are the T's are going to have to, I think, accept that there are going to be people who don't understand them, don't like them, or think that they're weird. And that the more that any marginalized group gets offended or they feel angry, that is just more time and more energy from their life that they no longer have, trying to combat a problem that is never going to be solved.
Now, I made a joke. It sounds a little bit insensitive, but I said, "Oh, if you're either neither male or female, you're it. You are." And I made the joke that you're a clown that sits in the sewer waiting for children holding a red balloon.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a bit insensitive. I, I'm definitely not here to compare uh, people to anybody sitting in a sewer. And they're not an it, they're human beings. But I would say that the First Amendment protects your right to say that that's how you feel, as long as a person is not ever violent or makes outright threats to another person's safety. Um, that is the beauty of living in America, is that you can say how you feel, regardless of anything. It doesn't matter. Um, and other people have the right to feel offended by that. But if you feel offended by what somebody says, you walk away and you don't associate with them. You don't hit them. You don't. I mean, what are you gonna do? I mean, you're gonna stalk them on the internet and then have their house swatted in the middle of the night. It's like, okay, good for you. Now you've harassed this one person, and what is that? What has that done? Are they gonna now never say anything offensive ever again? No. I mean, there's just absolutely no guarantee on any level possible that you can stop people from saying what they feel. And if any attempt is made to stop people from saying what they feel, that is fascism. And that's the irony, is people like Antifa who are becoming violent against what they call, oppressive fascism, all because, basically it seems to me that half of this group is sort of, attention seeking, say what I want you to say, feel how I want you to feel, or you're an insensitive bigot. Well, that is fascism. That is fascism.
well, and the biggest problem here is we have people on either side of the playing field that have two different opinions, and if your opinion doesn't cooperate with that person's opinion, we're gonna have mobs in the street. You're gonna have fires in businesses, and that's always what happens. Is when it comes to politics or anything, people are snapping. People are flying off from the edge, and they are, you know, going insane, and they're getting in people's faces because you disagree with something.
Yeah, and the question is, where does, because sometimes getting angry about a cause is helpful. Sometimes that passion and anger can actually create change. And then at the same time, sometimes just being passive and saying, whatever, let it roll off is also effective as well. So how do you, how do you really know how to react? I guess I am a truly privileged person, as, you are as well, and that we have family that loves us. And I mean, I can say, I have experienced sexism. I have definitely experienced it, but there's a lot of things that I haven't experienced, that is as bad as it could be. So I feel like sometimes I'm a little out of the, maybe I don't relate. Maybe I'm not relating to these women who are so angry. I get frustrated about things that men do, but I don't consider it to be something so extreme because I haven't experienced that extremity. And so I do try to be sensitive and think, I don't really know what these people have experienced. I don't know if they're triggered because they've had so much crap put on their head by people who didn't understand them and didn't even try, that now they're just angry all the time. I don't know. But I do know the facts. And the fact is that we live in America, and that being able to speak your own personal belief out of your mouth is foundational. It is the foundation of freedom. And if it ever comes a time when we can't do that, we're in trouble. And it doesn't matter if they want to say it's progress, it's not. It's not. You cannot police racism. You cannot police sexism. You cannot police homophobia. You can't do it. You can only police, violence or threats. That's it. So, I was made aware of a couple of situations. I don't think there's a lot of people doing this. I think it's this pretty small group, but I don't know. they might be gaining some kind of momentum that I don't know about. But if, let's say, somebody who has had a sex change operation then goes, forward in their life, and they encounter whoever they encounter and expect them to treat them exactly as they want to be treated, to the point that they are eliminating that person's ability to say, hey, I'm just not comfortable. I just don't understand, and I'm not comfortable, and I don't relate, and I just don't think we're going to be friends. If that person gets mad about that, they have the right to get mad. But as soon as they make a threat or they act in violence, they are the ones in the wrong.
Yes.
Period.
And anytime you engage with a person, or you get in somebody's face, or you want to harm them in a way, that you are breaking the law. And generally, in that perspective, it goes from point A to point B, and when you get to point B, that's where everything has gone to hell. Like, everybody has tilted and has gone full max, and there's at a point where we have to get back to A, and that's a civil conversation and a civil state of mind, where we're not reaching over the table and trying to beat the ever-loving heck out of the other person sitting at the table, because we're living in a neutral world here where it's too easy to set that firecracker off and watch the explosions go off. And those explosions are people. The analogy, the explosions are people. Don't you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's a tragedy that people are so quick to be mad when we have so much to be grateful for. I mean, things can still be better. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to say like, oh, but just be grateful as in some sort of complacency, where just accept where things are. It's fine. No more growth. Yeah, of course we can still grow, but we're not going to grow if we can't have civilized conversations with one another. We're not going to grow if we can't each individual person accept that not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to agree with you for any reason that you can think of. It doesn't matter. I don't have to justify why I don't want to spend time with somebody. I don't have to. And nobody has to do that for me either. If they don't want to spend time with me, they don't have to justify that. That's what we make bonds, and we have relationships based on this mutual agreement. And if that mutual agreement doesn't exist, either one of us can walk away. There's no sense in being volatile about it. There's no sense in being hateful and actually wanting some sort of vengeance. There's just no sense in it, and it's not justified.
Yeah.
That is what is not justified. Is violent.
Comedy is neutral, and in perspective of that, Dave Chappelle should be able to tell a joke about somebody in the tea community. If it's not offensive, you shouldn't bombard him with articles on articles how offensive he is to tea people. And the fact is that this pushes comedians away from doing jokes like this, because people get too offended in our world. And comedy should be neutral. People should understand, if you're paying a ticket to sit down and watch a man tell jokes, and he has a few tea jokes, you're going to have to sit through them. You may walk out, but that was you. You walked out. You got offended. And the fact is, comedy...
You knew what we're coming to, and that's a lot of things that comedians will say, is that, even Dave Chappelle himself said, if you don't like it, you bought the ticket. You knew where you're coming. It's not like, are you just going to be like, oh, who's this Dave Chappelle guy? I think I'll just go see his show. I've never heard him before. Like, who's going to drop that kind of money and spend that time on a Saturday night to go see some comedian they never heard of? You know who he is.
Yes.
And you know what he talks about. So if you've shown up, or you're watching his Netflix special, and you're there just to see how offended you can get, then at that point, I would say you're kind of a masochist. Are you deliberately trying to be offended? Are you deliberately trying to be miserable? If you don't like it, don't watch it. I've gone in and watched a comedy special before, and literally 10 minutes in, I'm like, hey, I'm not interested. And I just don't watch it. I don't send a letter. I don't pick it. I don't, this is a really good example. I am not a big fan of rap music in general because of how incredibly derogatory the lyrics are towards women, which is to me a tragedy because I think that it sounds great. But when I hear the lyrics, I'm like, God, I cannot stand this. But that's all. I can't stand it, so I don't listen to it and I don't buy their product. I don't hate them for it. I'm not going to pick it in the street because I think in a sense, at the end of the day, it's my time, it's my life. How do I want to spend my time? I'm going to spend my time giving that energy to somebody that I don't like. And isn't that kind of strange?
Yes, it
Does
is. It's
not make sense to give your time and energy and thought to something that you don't like. It's masochistic. It's like, then get a hobby, do something that you do like. Why are you so, drawn and so obsessed with this thing that you don't like?
because I think what it is people want to bifurcate situations and break down the system and bifurcate a lot of things.
I don't think I have to that word.
Huh?
But what does that word mean?
That word is to mean for something to be ripped in half. Bifurcated. I
like
I
whatever it is, keep it. That's good. We'll add it to the dictionary.
I don't know if I got it right, but my somebody told me that word. I always am learning new words and trying to express them and put them into my dictionary of sentences as I express them. Bifurcated, I think. Bifurcated or
I'm not sure, but I do understand what you mean. Go ahead.
But the thing is, a lot of people try to rip things in half in conversations just by dropping a little seed, and that seed is called, something controversial, something it is different. They're always trying to, and the reason, and I'll explain to this why, Krystle, they're doing this because people want to complain about stuff. People want to make a big deal about something because people are sometimes boring. People sometimes don't know what to say.
And are bored. I think they're bored.
They're bored, and they're like, how can I cause a riot? How can I make drama? Okay, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to lash out. And
I also think that there's this idea, and it's not my idea, but I definitely think there's a lot of validity in this idea that we are in between stages. We're if we're talking about young people like Gen Z all the way to like Gen X people, so from 18 to 45, that we have, for the first time, we have a group of people who don't really have much to truly work for, because not to say that it was so good back in the Industrial Revolution, because it wasn't, but I think that maybe people did feel like they had something to work towards, because they were constructing and they were building, and there was this brand new technology that was changing everything, and now we have that. We take it for granted to the point that college educated people are working in retail stores, unpacking, cheap garbage from China, and there's this knowledge that, we get China's enslaved and they're making this stuff. And now we are getting minimum wage to unpack it and to smile and, kiss butt to the clients. And we don't go to work and come home and feel like there's any sense of fulfillment whatsoever. And that is so complicated. When you think about what makes people unhappy, what's really making us unhappy is so complicated. And I think that people they're just trying to pick something to be mad about. We're angry about something that we can't put our hands on. So we're going to make something.
Yeah.
So now I'm mad that you don't like me. Now I'm mad that this, and I'm mad at that. And it's like, we have bored and lonely people who are seeking attention, and they're not even really working towards a cause. They're not standing for a cause. They're standing for themselves and their own attention-seeking behavior, and they don't really realize it. I would say that the people who are in their early 20s now, who are talking about how terribly marginalized they are. And I say this having met people who talked about themselves being marginalized, and it was a joke to me because I know that I've been far more marginalized than these people who are saying that they are marginalized. Just because you're a guy who sometimes wants to wear a dress doesn't mean that you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. You live in an incredibly progressive hippie town. You come from a wealthy family. He came from a wealthy family. He was able to go to UCLA, all expenses paid, for an experimental music degree. You seem very popular. You're very well off. You've had the privilege of coming from a very well-to-do family who accepted everything about you. I am more marginal. I don't really have that much to complain about. But for now, I think we just have a wave of young people who are angry about so many things that really do make sense and they should be mad about it. We should all be upset about it. But because they can't make sense of it, they might as well just complain about something simple. And that's, how I feel. Sorry. No, go ahead. No, please go ahead.
And I think, Krystle, me and you know those kind of people. We know those kind of people that make situations like that. We've been formerly friends with people like that want to make a big deal about nothing and say that they're something when they're not, that they're just entitled. And we both have had experiences with people like this that think that they are entitled, that, oh, my opinion's more valued over yours. I'm a genius. You're an idiot. And I think I'm entitled to a lot because I'm an artist.
Being rude and being insensitive is okay because, hey, I'm smarter than you. And, and that's, these people that I've been around, that you've been around, they're really the only circle of people that I have personally encountered that behave this way. I mean, gosh, when I first heard of some of the things that were going on as far as the new progressive thing, which, I mean, I'm like, yeah, it is progressive, until I'm like, oh no, that's not progressive. And I guess I'm just going to leave it at that, because either, you know what I'm talking about or you don't. I don't want to get too specific, for just reasons, but it's really sad to me, because what was progressive, what is progress in understanding one another and accepting one another, and that it's just all fine, it's all good, and it's all normal, it's all the spectrum of humanity. It is the human condition expressing itself in each individual person. It's a beautiful thing. Is now, as soon as it happened, it seemed like not even a decade later, it started to get perverted, not literally, but, I mean, like, ruined. It started to get ruined, because at the same time that we don't want to tolerate bigotry, on the other hand, we can't then just freely hurt those who are not, they don't agree. Because at the end of the day, even if, I can't stand racism, I can't stand homophobia. I've never been able to. Even when I was a child, even at the age of 8, raised as Southern Baptist, I could not understand what the big deal was about being gay. I couldn't get it. I've never understood why it mattered to anybody, or why it was considered wrong, or why God would care about someone's sexuality. It's so silly. But at the end of the day, we have got to protect each individual's person's right to have an opinion. You cannot act in violence upon that opinion, and you cannot make a threat on someone's safety based on that opinion. But you can certainly have it and express it out of your own lips without, you should not feel afraid that you're going to be disenfranchised. Your channel's going to be shut down. Oh, everybody hates you. Oh, we're going to spread this slanderous stuff about you, all because what? I thought it was the silliest thing in the world when a few years ago, some, I don't know, reporter, journalist, whatever, somebody went to the Duck Dynasty guy, right? Like, he's literally sitting in the middle of a bayou. He's never been out of, like, southern Georgia in his whole life. His claim to fame is making a duck whistle, and somebody goes up to him and they want to ask him what his opinion is on gay marriage. I mean, number one, who cares what this guy thinks? Who cares what he thinks? He's not a politician. He's not running for president. He's not a governor. He's not doing anything. And he's clearly just, he is who he is.
Yeah.
So when he's, oh, well, I think, gay marriage should be between a man and a woman. And then all this hate. Now, on one hand, our people have the right to say, you suck, because he said that? Sure, they have the right. But look at how ridiculously set up that situation was.
Yes, that reporter set him up. That reporter set that guy up.
So deliberately focused on a conflict that while people are focused on conflict, I'm not going to respect your opinion. I don't care who you are. I don't care how many degrees you've got. I don't care what you've been through. If you are focused on conflict and not resolution or solution, I'm not going to listen to you for long, because that is just not, there's no purpose in that.
No, there's no purpose at all. And I think it's wrong to set somebody up like that, to purposely set the quota, set the bar. You mean, I have sat down with the reporters, and good, decent reporters that are here in Black Mountain. Fortunately, he retired this past year. I was really sad, but at any point, if I had misspoken about something about gun rights or something like that, about I looked at him, I was like, please don't print that. And he's like, oh, don't, that is not my goal here, Tommy, to print that. But if that was a unbiased person that was in the media, they would have printed that up. Oh, autistic man
loves conflict. They love it.
They would print autistic man talks about gun rights, They would slide that in there somehow, and then somehow I would get attacked because I have my opinion about guns. And I believe, in my opinion, every American should have a gun to defend themselves. I believe we have our
Second Amendment. I mean,
it's our Second Amendment, and there's people out there that want to take guns away because you're just a Bible thumping, dumb American Bible thumper. And I'm like, no, I'm a human being.
That's not true. It's not true. And it's a very interesting conversation to have because, I definitely am a firm believer that, and I think that there's a lot of evidence and a lot of proof out there to support it, that, it's not just coming from me, that if you take the guns out of good, honest people's hands, who have, taken the class and they've bought that gun with their hard-earned money, and it's important to them to have that protection. You take that away from them, you're not going to be able to take the guns out of the bad people's hands, because they can go on black market. They can, they can find a way to get a gun. And so if you take away our Second Amendment right, all you're doing is taking guns out of honest people's hands. You're not, that's all that they're doing. And I understand. I have talked to people who are very pro-gun, and I've talked to people who are very anti-gun. And there's somewhere in the middle is the solution. That's how it always is. You have this extreme, you have that extreme, and the solution is usually somewhere in the middle. I had an anti-gun person tell me once, and I thought it was a decent argument. He said, well, statistically, most gun deaths in America are accidental, which means that somebody doesn't know how to use a gun, or they have a loaded gun around a child, and people are not being well educated enough, and kids and people are dying on accident because people have guns, they don't know how to use them. And I was like, well, that's a decent argument for gun control. Gun control, not the absence of guns. I think there just needs to be a heavier vetting process. Like in this class, to take into consideration, psychological disorders, obviously, which, is done. If you're a felon, you can't have a concealed weapon and all this stuff. But, on the other hand, to really emphasize to people how very important it is that your kid can't get a hold of this and play with it. And you know what really the best guard against that is?
What's that?
allowing a child to understand how powerful a gun really is.
Yes.
So in my parents' household, there are 3 guns, 3, not rifles, but guns, handheld guns. 2 have laser sights. And I'm like, my daughter needs to see just how powerful this is. So we set a cantaloupe outside in the backyard, and we're just like, this is basically like a person's arm. This is essentially a person's head, really. And look at what it can do. And listen to how loud it is. And after that, I could see it in her eyes that she understood. And I said to her, I was like, will you ever touch this ever? And she's like, no. So I didn't have to, she didn't have to touch it. She was 20 feet away, and she had a healthy respect for what that weapon could do. And that's all it took, because children are intelligent. You cannot have a gun in your house and keep it a secret from your children. They need to know that it's not a toy.
Yes, and that this thing is meant for hunting or defending yourself. And one of the things I think is interesting in the fact that in the state of North Carolina, you cannot actually shoot somebody on your property. They actually have to be legally in your house for you to shoot. And that's stupid. How are we letting the criminals or the people that are coming at us get into our house? Like, come on, North Carolina, are you serious? You're gonna let? If I have a family, I'm not gonna let that person that wants to harm me get into my house. I'm sorry. You better run. You better run, David, or you better run, Bobby, or something like that, because you're gonna get lead in your butt. Because the fact is, you're not gonna harm my family.
Yeah, those situations are quite. Again, it's strange, because it's like, okay, so it makes sense and it doesn't. Because if, let's say, I have somebody who is threatening my life in my front yard, but they don't have a gun, but I do have a gun, and they're threatening me, I'm going to kill you, all this stuff. And then let's say they proceed to leave. They get in their car and they're like, I'm going to be back and I'm going to kill you. So I'm going to sit here, and I have 2 choices. I actually have 3 choices. Just let him go and say, well, whatever. I guess I'll just lose sleep and stay up all night for weeks on end waiting for this guy to come back because he says he's going to kill me. I can shoot him where he's at and probably go to prison for a long time, because no one's there to prove whether or not he threatened me or not. Or 3, I can call the cops and basically cross my fingers and hope that they'll actually do something about it. And unfortunately, when we're talking about current social climate, that is part of it, is that police, and I have experienced it myself firsthand, will take some pretty serious matters idly because, there's no proof. Okay.
Is there any stories you can share with us about your situation with police officers? Because I have one story about a police officer that I had an incident with. If you want to share it with it here on the podcast.
Well, one incident, I had a problem with a fellow that I was with who was living with me, and he was incredibly intoxicated, like ridiculously drunk. And I basically had spent the last 3 hours being followed around, harassed, insulted, in my own home. And that was how it was going on. So he was just so belligerent. So I called the police and basically just said, please do something, help me, remove him, I don't care, we just take him somewhere, do something. And the police could tell that he was incredibly intoxicated. They became very frustrated with him because of that. And eventually they got him into the car and left. And so I was proceeding at that time to leave the house myself. It was not a good time. It was not a good thing. And I wanted to go spend some time with a friend of mine. 10 minutes after they picked him up, he walked back into the door. He just waltzed right into my front door.
You're kidding me.
And I'm like, what? And I look outside, and there's no cop. There's no cop car. There's no nothing. But I know that the same cop dropped him off because that's the cop he left with. And I was like, what the hell? Why are you here? What? And he's like, well, they couldn't take me nowhere because I told them I didn't have any money and I couldn't get a room, and so they weren't gonna book me, weren't let me off nowhere, so they just brought me back here. And they dropped him off, and he walked back in, and the cop didn't even stick around. The cop didn't even come come inside and say, "Hey, you got somewhere you can go? Are you concerned for your safety?" Nothing. He just dropped him off and left. I mean,
Wow.
that guy could have come back and beat the ever-living snot out of me. And I mean, that's one thing that happened. And I get it. Okay, so you can't charge him with anything because he didn't hurt me, he didn't hit me, but to what extent can a person be harassed till that it does warrant some sort of intervention? And I know that's hard to police. I know that would be very difficult to manage. I understand. But I think that the most inappropriate thing that police officer could have done was just drop him back off and leave. And that's what he did.
And the situation with that is these police. The thing is, I even watch cops where they take people that are drunk and just walking around. They put them in the drunk tank. They let them sit overnight. They at least should have done that. They at least should have put him in the drunk tank. Like that was irresponsible.
According to the law, they had no reason to arrest him because he was drunk. He wasn't, drunk outside. He wasn't drunk in public, and he hadn't hit me or made a direct threat to my life. I mean, he had spent the last 3 hours harassing me and insulting me and following me around no matter where I went. And I would have to have left my own home to escape that abuse. But they had no evidence on which to arrest him and hold him into a drunk tank. And on one hand, I do get that, and on the other hand, I think that if there was just more manpower, energy, and funding towards the things that do affect our lives, that maybe that would have been different. And now that is nothing compared to the stories I've heard on the news. Several years ago, there was an instance. My dad works for the county, so he's a quote unquote cop, but he's not a city cop. He's works for the sheriff. And there was a woman. I don't know what state she was in, but she had been brutalized by her boyfriend for quite some time.
Wow.
And he had called her from his work and said, "Hey, I'm going to be off at this time, and when I get home, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to beat you till you're dead." And this had already almost happened before. She'd been beaten by him and threatened by him and all kinds of things. And so she was ready this time with a gun. And when he gets out of the car and he starts coming into the house, after having threatened her life and after having brutalized her for probably years, and she shot him.
Wow.
And she was convicted of premeditated manslaughter, and she's sentenced for the rest of her life for 25 years, which is a life sentence, in prison for that. And my question is, who in the world is sad about that man's death?
No.
I don't understand.
And did this happen in North Carolina, or did this happen in another state?
I don't know what state it was.
That's just ridiculous. That's just insane. At the fact that she defended herself and her husband said, "Hey, I'm going to come home and I'm going to kill you." Now, if she had like say a recording, and she had played that to the police, I would say at that point that that's where she should have taken action. But where she took action in her own, I think she had every right to do what she did to her husband.
Yeah, I think she had every right. I mean, that is inspiring so much fear in somebody. And and my question is too, where is the law? Where is the law in these cases? Because I've heard a million people say, "Oh, don't talk about certain things on the phone." I mean, you can't even text or talk about buying cannabis on the phone, or else, oh, it might mean something, it might be bad. Oh, because the government's listening in? Well, if that's the case, then surely they have wiretapped that conversation to be able to hear him threaten her life. I mean, I don't understand. Why are we cherry picking? Why is the government or the law cherry picking what they're going to look at and what they don't look at? And I think that's a huge part of the problem is, who gets amnesty and who doesn't, who gets blamed and who doesn't, and that each state has a different, law and a different standard. Each judge in the court of law has their own impunity and their own individual right to judge, within the law. Guess not even really within the law, based on how they see fit. Now, how are we going to have justice in that? How do you have justice when justice is apparently subjective? Justice is not subjective. Law is not subjective. It has to be a consistent standard all of the time.
What it is it's money. It's compared to somebody that has millions of dollars and somebody that doesn't have money. The case is always penalized because of a money situation. And I think it's, even if you're a celebrity and you do something, that it should be judged to the full standards of what that case is, and not let off because of certain situations.
Yeah, money should not have anything to do with it. It always does, and it has for a very long time. I mean, good grief. I mean, you can go back to biblical times, and it's money. Money buys your freedom, but money buys you, your whatever you want. And and we definitely do need to. I mean, I think the law needs to back off sometimes. I mean, I had another experience where I was stolen from. I was straight up stolen from. It was and I actually went to civil court for it, and it was verdict was in my favor. It was obtaining property or obtaining money under false pretenses. So I had typed myself a contractual agreement between me and this other woman that if I were to give her, write her a check for $1,000 as a down payment on this mobile home of hers that I wanted to buy in order to keep it, to sustain it for me to be able to purchase, that she would hold on to it, that she would not sell it to anybody else or, let it go away or anything like that, without, basically telling me, so that I could, do whatever I needed to do to obtain that property. And instead, she took my $1,000, and then 4 months later, because the loan took it was just such a fiasco. It took so long for this loan company to approve me and all this stuff. It took them so much longer than what it said it was going to take them. And I noticed that she was not in contact with me anymore. And so I started trying to contact her. She was not answering the phone. She was not responding to text messages. And so I go by the place, and the home is gone. So I take her to court. She doesn't show up. The verdict's in my favor. And you know what they tell me?
What?
That I have to pay an additional $75 just to have the ability to maybe my money back. Because the law was not going to garnish her wages to pay me back. And I had to pay that money so that it's called a writ. It's not a writ of execution, but there was a term that they had for it. pay money. It was almost $100 so that she could then have 30 days to write a list of things that she was not willing to have liquidated in order to pay me back.
Wow.
So that she could make a list. Yeah. So that, I don't want my TV, and I don't want my car, and I don't want my house, and I don't want all these things liquidated to pay her back. I had to pay money so that she could make a list like that. And then I was expected more money. I think it was like $35 to do a writ of execution after that, which then said that for the next 10 years, any she tried to sell that she couldn't sell until she paid me back. So that was the best I had. I was also told that if I were to press charges against her for that the most time she would serve possible is 6 months. Probably not even that. That's the most possible time she was going to serve. And that after she served that time, she was no longer obligated to pay me back at all. So I could either go on a witch hunt for money that I was never going to get back, or I could press charges, put her in jail, and then ultimately definitely not get my money back. And so that was that. Instead of them simply just garnishing her wages. Okay, yeah, we're going to take blah, blah, blah % of your wages for every month until she's paid back. Now, isn't that so simple?
Yes.
Nobody goes to jail. Nothing's unfair. You took the money. Now you're going to pay her back in installments. Nope. She got away with it scot-free.
Wow.
But if I went to her house and then stole $1,000 worth of her property so that I could get my money back, I would go to prison.
That was a similar case in O.J. Simpson. He,
was
because he broke into somewhere and he went to steal a jersey that he wanted to make money off of, and they ended up busting him on him trying to steal that jersey.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say it's similar, but it is kind of a funny situation. He's trying to steal his own jersey too, which is pretty funny that he wanted to steal his own jersey.
But Krystle, that's insane. I can't believe that happened to you. Like that person did that to you. That's just blows my mind.
It happens all the time, and they have the law is on their side. The law is on the criminal side in this situation. The law is on the criminal side in the case of that woman who shot her husband. I mean, my thing, and I mean the only thing about how it used to be that I would say I could ever miss. It's like, two guys are at a bar, this guy insults this guy, and that guy insults that guy, and they go at it until they're like, hey, let's solve this with, good old-fashioned fisticuffs behind the bar. And they just have a fight that somebody's not like, oh, well, he threw the first punch, and here's the surveillance camera, and now I want to press charges. It's like, why, somebody they can't even just have a fight. It's like a good old fashioned fight, just to do it, because that's kind of what people do sometimes, without the law getting involved. It's like, it's none of your business. Just leave it alone. Two people had a fight. Somebody walked away with a black eye. This guy walked away with a bloody nose. Who cares?
Once you make that circle in the dirt. Once you make that circle in the dirt, that's between you and that other man. It's not between the courts. It's between you and that other man. You settle it. You guys give each other a hug. You drink a beer, and you go your separate way. It's not, oh, you gave each other a hug and had a beer, and then, take him to court and sue him for assaulting you. That's not what it is. It's...
Yeah, if you agree, let's go have a fight. Good old-fashioned fight. It's not then later on, hey, let's see if I can sue you because of, a surveillance tape or whatever. I mean, there's so much of the time that the law needs to butt the frick out, and they don't. And then there's times when they need to be involved, and they're not. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I mean,
not being serious.
I have never been in a physical fight myself, but, I've almost been in a situation where I had to defend Hamza because a homeless gentleman was trying to go after Hamza because he was defending somebody else, and I had to step in between. But I never ever like activated. I kind of like puffed myself up and was like, "Dude, you need to keep walking. You just need to keep walking because there's no reason for you to." Be doing this. You need to. And he got on the other street. He's like, "Come on, come over here." And I'm like, "I'm not gonna go over there and get in a fight with you and then end up in jail. No, thank you. I'm fine. I'm standing right here. Stay over there." I'm wearing a trench coat, a bulletproof vest. Wasn't a bulletproof vest. It was just like a combat vest, which I gave to you as a gift just recently.
Yes. By the way, it didn't fit me at all, but my brother loves it.
Really?
He absolutely adores that thing.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm glad Bubba loves it. Bubba is definitely an interesting kid. I gotta say, uh, I honestly, like, one time I remember he ran into a stop sign for one of my videos. Like, honestly,
He used to do all kinds of crazy antics he was out the wall. I mean, he's a drummer, so I've met several drummers who have a high level of energy, and he's definitely was one of them. He's simmered down a little bit. He's 25 now, so he's simmered down a little bit, but I'm sure you could probably convince him to do something like that again.
You think
Twist his arm a little bit?
Do you think he'd let me shoot him with a paintball gun, or an airsoft gun?
I don't know. There would have to be some kind of money exchange involved, but depending on the depending on the stakes, maybe. I don't know.
Well, if I ever get the money saved up, I'll give him $100 if he lets me shoot him 3 times with a paintball gun.
I think that he would take $100 for that. If that's pretty good. I would let you shoot me with a paintball gun 3 times for $100.
Well,
I've been shot with a paintball, and it hurts. I mean, not like
I was shot in the paintball gun by my dad because I wanted to know how a paintball gun felt. And so I bent over and shook my butt at him. I said, "You can't shoot me. You can't shoot me." And right at that second, everything slowed down. And I went, "Yeet!" up in the air. And like, right in the cheek, he hit me. And I'm like, "Yeet, yeet,
yeet, yeet." Yeah, close range, that's not good. But, at a decent, respectable, I don't know, just the range that would be I expected, I guess, it's okay. It's not that bad. I've had a baby, so being shot with a paintball from 15 feet away wouldn't be that big of a deal.
And I could say, I like to think I was the responsible one for you giving birth because I put my hand on your stomach and I said, "Come out, baby Evan. Come out. Let the power of the force release you from Krystle's insides."
Yeah, you should start a business. Are you overdue? Let Tommy rub your belly.
Shout out to the $1.99 donation. Thank you so much for that donation. I just got a super chat. Somebody just put $1.99 in the chat.
Well, that sounds generous.
Yes, very generous.
Well, it's almost 8:00, and I have really got to pay. So, okay, but that was fun.
Well, we forgot to talk about Joker. Like, we were going to talk a little bit about Joker.
Okay, well, we should incorporate that into a time. Because it's about that time for me. I'm the mom. I got the mommy biz going on. It's a school night, so. But keep that in your hat, and we'll talk about it next time.
So, folks, we'll have an exclusive podcast where we talk about Joker and many other topics. We're sorry we couldn't get to that. We did get to a lot of the subjects that we were talking about that were in this thumbnail, even though we didn't get to Joker. But as always, I'm Tommy NC2010. I'm sorry about the lag again, folks. I don't know what's wrong. I did put the thumbnail here in the main shot, but that didn't seem like there was any lag. I don't know what's wrong with my OBS and why it does this. I had the charter guy come here and try to fix this. But as always,
So
yeah, they didn't see us at all. They saw us for like for 5 seconds and there was lag.
oh, it's too bad. It's too bad.
As always, folks, I'm Tommy NC2010, and I'm keeping you on the inside fact. And this is the Krystle and Tommy podcast, where we leave you more than intrigued, and in your mind and in your sanity. We love you. Good night. We'll catch you a bit later, folks.
Farewell.
Farewell.
Take care.
Take care.